Hey everybody, Brian Zane with my review of AEW's Double or Nothing pay-per-view. The show just wrapped up out of Daly's Place in Jacksonville, a mostly empty venue, of course, like they've been doing with these empty arena shows. They've got a small smattering of people to really kind of create some kind of crowd flavor with these shows. I have to warn y'all in advance, this might disappoint some of you, because you know when I do my pay-per-view reviews, I try and have footage to accompany what I'm saying, and I've done it in the past with AEW shows, but for whatever reason, my usual channels of trying to get my ways of getting footage right now are coming up dry. So I'm having a real hard time finding the footage at this moment. I'm sure there are ways to do it. I know there are ways to do it, but I don't know the ways to do it. So I don't have the time though to pull something like that out right now. So yeah, I'm gonna try and go into this one blind with no video accompaniment, and I'm very apologetic about that because more than anything right now in the world, I want to show you highlights of the Stadium Stampede and just show you how batshit insane that match was. But we'll get to that all later. So forgive me, you'll just have to settle on the theater of the mind for right now. Let's start with the buy-in. Number one contenders match for the AEW tag titles as the Best Friends take on Private Party. One of the main highlights of this match, honestly, was Trent losing his bandana, getting it back, and then losing it again. This match started out really slow, and to me, never really got into like a good third gear. There was a couple of good, there were some good spots here and there. Big like Tower of Doom superplex by the Best Friends, and Cassidy's a House of Fire and his first hot tag. There are a lot of awkward points though, and I think unfortunately this falls mostly on Private Party. A lot of times where they're trying to do double team moves and it just gets all messed up and they gotta try and cover for it. I will give them credit though, they do hit the G9, which is a tribute to Shad Gaspard. That was Crime Time's old tag team finisher. But yeah, just some sloppy double team moves here that really kind of took me out of it. And but we do get a beautiful shooting star press from Mark Quinn during the matchup here. I will say Trent selling his ribs all match was a really good little wrinkle because it kind of affects him later on as the match goes on. The Best Friends do win after hitting the strong 0 on Mark Quinn, and they are the new number one contenders. I'm going to give this one 2 stars out of 5. This one I wasn't really feeling. I think like I said, it just didn't get into that good gear. I've seen better work from Private Party and from Best Friends. These two teams together didn't really mesh well for me, and it was unfortunate because I was looking forward to this match. One of the matches I was looking forward to the most on this pay-per-view. But yeah, it didn't really work out, and them's the breaks. When the show officially begins with the pyro and everything, I do appreciate the fact that they brought back the very peppy Vegas-themed music from last year. That's something I really enjoyed, being there live last year at MGM Grand. And one of my favorite moments here early on is Jim Ross talking about how amped the crowd is. They're all jacked up on White Claws. The opening matchup is the Casino Ladder match for number one contendership for the World Championship. And the idea here is you got 9 people, one of whom is a mystery competitor. And the first 2 people come out, and it's basically a Royal Rumble style kind of thing, but it's like a ladder match. So every 2 minutes, another person enters the fray. Numbers 1 and 2 are Kaz and Scorpio Sky of SCU. So we get this kind of like very babyface opening salvo here. It's like they're just kind of like getting their reps in. They're like sparring essentially. It's very clean wrestling for those 2 minutes. Right at the end though, we got this double down noggin knocker thing, which allows Kip Sabian to come in at number 3, and he's got Penelope Ford and Jimmy Havoc at his side. Havoc immediately starts, well, causing havoc. He's throwing the ladder around at people and stuff, but Havoc does eventually get wrecked, and then he's taken out of the match for a considerable amount of time. Number 4 is Darby Allin. He immediately starts fucking shit up. One of the big highlights of this matchup, he's got Kaz on this ladder bridge, and Darby himself climbs another ladder with a skateboard, goes to drop onto Kaz, but Kaz moves, and so Darby just totally crashes and burns and seems to hurt his leg in the process. At number 5 is Orange Cassidy, who needs to go over to the announce team to get a reminder of how to win a ladder match. When he gets in the ring, he effortlessly dodges the other guys in the ring, but then like he is too lazy to properly pick up and set up a ladder. Number 6 is Colt Cabana. At this point in the match, I'm starting to go, wait a minute, why is everyone just needlessly selling stuff outside of Darby Allin, who has every right to sell and just keeps selling? But, you know, by the time like Orange gets in there and then Colt gets in there, I'm noticing there's a lot of like standing around or selling on the outside, waiting for spots to happen. And that really kind of took me out of it for a brief bit there. There's this moment where Colt is climbing the ladder, he gets knocked down, he hangs on to it. I think he's supposed to hold on by his hands and his legs on the ladder. ladder, but the ladder like clatters down at his fingertips. I don't know how much that was a shoot or not, but I saw some genuine looking pain in Colt's face after his fingers got jammed by the ladder closing down on him. And then the ladder, somebody gets thrown on the ladder that he's underneath, and he rolls out of the ring from that. Joey Janela's number 7, he dives onto everybody. Number 8 is Luchasaurus, and I go, oh, isn't that convenient that the mystery competitor is the last guy in this matchup here. At number 9, it's Brian Cage, the former Impact World Champion, and was a free agent for a while. A lot of people in my predictions video, I had no idea who it was going to be, and like almost everybody predicted Brian Cage. And if you picked him, you're right. Cage, by the way, is accompanied by Taz, who also does the opening line for Cage's theme song, and Cage is just wrecking everybody. And like the last person he slams is Joey Janela, and you can hear Janela on the hot mic going, "Fucking motherfucker," as he's selling. Then Cage is climbing the ladder. Orange Cassidy is hanging onto his back like a spider monkey. Eventually, everyone's like pulling the two of them down, and then they all start beating up Cage together. It's like, it's 8-on-1. Darby by this point has woken back up and is in the match again. So everyone's beating on Cage. They take him on the outside. They pull kind of a Braun Strowman with him, where there's a pile just garbage on top of him, like barricade pieces, the giant chips, tables, chairs, everything. There's like burying him in this thing. Orange Cassidy then sprints up the ladder, and Kip Sabian's not too far behind him. And then things get really hectic for a minute because Penelope Ford shows up. Jimmy Havoc gets back in the ring, and those two both interfere. The Best Friends show back up, and Chucky T not wearing any shoes because he's changing. He's getting dressed in the middle of the match, and his friend's getting beat up. So nice touch of urgency there by Chucky T. And so then it gets cleared out. Then Marco Stunt shows up, and he helps Luchasaurus chokeslam Orange with a little step ladder to help him out. But that part to me was like the hokiest thing of all this for me. And like it was just like, it seemed like extra silly. I don't know, there was a lot of silliness going on in this matchup, but for some reason that particular spot really kind of stuck in my craw. Then Janela, with one of the biggest spots here in this matchup, he does a Death Valley driver to Orange, off the apron, onto the pile of shit that is covering Brian Cage. So I don't know if anyone communicated to Cage that spot was about to happen, because he's laying there face down, and then he gets squashed by Janela and Orange and all that stuff, which is crazy. Kaz and Sky are fighting on top of the ladder, and they get knocked off. And just when I begin to wonder, hey, how come Taz hasn't shown up to try and save Cage from all the rubble? Because we've seen enough interference from like managers and seconds in this matchup. Out pops Cage. He just emerges from the pile, and then he just gets angry, starts killing people again, and he just totally destroys Darby Allin. The finish of this matchup here is he puts Darby on top of a ladder, picks up the ladder with Darby on it, and just hucks it all out of the ring into another ladder. So Darby is the MVP in this match when it comes to like taking the craziest bumps and damn near killing yourself, which has been his trademark in the last several months. So he's doing that again in this matchup. He grabs the chip, does Brian Cage. He grabs the giant chip hanging from over the ring, and he wins. So that is the arrival of Brian Cage here. He's the new #1 contender. I give this one 3.5 stars out of 5. It was a very entertaining ladder match. I thought it was a good story and a great surprise in Cage showing up. Surprise for me, at least. And I think it was really a great introduction to him. It made him look like a total killer. And there's the intrigue of where Taz fits into all this. And so then, but like I said, the thing that kind of took me out of it was in the middle of the match, all this kind of waiting for something to happen. And then the Marco Stunt spot, for some reason, that one just didn't jive with me. But I will say I appreciated the symbolic ending, because in the last several weeks we saw Taz talking to Darby Allin, trying to offer him help, and Darby wanted none of it, and well, came back to bite him, because Darby was the last man to fight Cage in the ring, and he got totally destroyed as a result. So it came back to bite him. And Darby, like I said, just bumped his ass off in this match, made a very lasting impression. I would say it was a more entertaining than not ladder match, but there were a couple little hiccups in the thing that just kind of made me like, turn me off to some of it. Up next, MJF taking on Jungle Boy. I was kind of surprised the opening of the match, Wardlow goes on his merry way to the back. He is not a factor in this match at all. But this is, and I'm just going to say it right now, this is a phenomenal match. And of all the matches we see on this card tonight, this one is my favorite wrestling match. And I emphasize that it's a wrestling match because my favorite match of the night is not what you would call a wrestling match. But be that as it may, this was great because it was just so old school, but it still was very intense and fast-paced. And I love the work that MJF and Jungle Boy have in this, and the story they each tell, because MJF is just working the hell out of Jungle Boy's arm, and then MJF's back gets injured throughout the match, so some of his stuff backfires. At one point near the middle of the match, though, there was one one part where they kind of stop what they're doing to exchange chops. I'm like, okay, that's something I think you would do more in the first third of the match, not like the middle/last third of the match. It just seemed like kind of out of place, but they pick things up after that really quickly. There's Canadian Destroyer by Jungle Boy. MJF does like a delayed sell where he like is able to hit a super kick, but then he passes out, lands on Jungle Boy. We get a 2 count from there. Jungle Boy is able to get a submission from that, but his arm is too weak to capitalize on this, so he can't put the full strength behind it. MJF drives him onto his neck, but we get a 2 count from that. A crazy Poison Rana by Jungle Boy on the apron, and the way MJF takes it, it like sells like a madman. He just lands like right on his head. It looks so scary at first. Jungle Boy is like trying to pull MJF's lifeless body into the ring, goes to the top rope, but MJF's grabbing the referee, who then grabs the top rope, so she accidentally crotches Jungle Boy. Oh my God, Aubrey Edwards heel turn confirmed, but somehow that's not the finish. The match just keeps on going. Blonde Bomber, top rope powerbomb by Jungle Boy, and we get a 2 count from that. They are still fighting, and it just keeps going. These guys just have such a will and a drive. It's so fun and infectious to watch, that kind of spirit. Ultimately, though, there's some counter roll-ups, and everything. MJF gets the last lap, though. He gets the last counter on the roll-up, he bridges the neck, puts the shoulders off the mat. He's able to pin Jungle Boy totally clean. That was a really big surprise, in kind of a thing where you expect, oh, MJF's going to use the ring, he's going to use Wardlow, he's going to hit a low blow or something like that. There was a little bit of chicanery in the matchup, but it didn't factor into the finish itself. And so that's what I really liked about that. I'm going to give this one 4.5 stars out of 5. This was such a great match and just such a showcase for these 2 young up-and-comers. MJF, I think a lot of people are in agreement that he is a great future star. I think people were kind of not convinced about Jungle Boy, but I've been on the Jungle Boy train for a couple of years now, and watching this match felt really like, felt kind of good. It warmed the cockles of my heart to see him do so well in this matchup, really hold his own, and just like go balls to the wall with MJF the entire time, and they just put on this hell of a good match. And it was better than some of the stuff you see from some of these, from the longer reigning veterans of the company. And that was just, it was so cool to see. It's like, that's the future of wrestling right there, is those 2 guys. And they just put on a hell of a clinic. In a match to crown the first ever TNT champion, and holy shit, look at that belt. It is fucking atrocious. People want to talk mess about the Universal Championship when it was first unveiled with the red strap, or the 24/7 championship. This one is right on that level for me, man, because it's got, it's the red strap instead of green, it's silver instead of gold plated. They did explain, as soon as the bell rang to start the matchup, Tony Schiavone just jumps right in and says, this belt is not a complete version. Due to the pandemic, they weren't able to get it gold plated in time, so this is what you have for now, but it will look different later. I'm like, okay, I will give them the benefit of the doubt in that case, because yeah, I mean, it's a horrible looking belt and they had to make it in a rush. I'm surprised there were no belt makers who could just do kind of a rush order, make it top priority and do it faster. But it was something like, we'll see. Maybe when it's gold plated and maybe if they add some jewels to it, it will look better. I think just right now the center plate was just like what stands out. Oh my God, it's so like bare, it's so blank. Even if you gold plate it, you still have all this what looks to be dead space above the TNT logo. That really threw me off guard. What is the significance of what looked to be plantation mansions on the side plates? I don't understand what that means. So yeah, maybe once it's done and the belt is complete, then I will, make a different judgment call on it. But right now, it's like, oh boy, that was, it kind of threw me off a bit. The very first thing you see in this matchup after the belt is revealed, Lance Archer makes his entrance, kills a guy in the ring, cuts right to Mike Tyson standing on the ramp looking very impressed by what he sees, and then you see Jake Roberts in the background cutting a little jig. What is even happening? That whole sequence was immediately turned into a GIF. That was probably one of the highlights of this entire matchup. Cody tries to start off fast in this match, but he's immediately shut down by Lance Archer's strength. He goes for like a Cody cutter right off the bat, but he is just like checked in midair by a shoulder block from Archer. And then he spends several minutes getting the piss beat out of him. He's getting tossed around from pillar to post, choke slammed off the barricade onto the concrete floor. There are some signs of life. Like he counters one stalling suplex with one of his own. Looks very nice. But then Archer's just right back on top of him. One of my favorite parts is like Archer does like a suplex, but Cody just keeps flipping and it lands like right on his ass. But he hits it so hard, he doesn't like scoot or slide. He just bam, lands on the ass, and that's all there is. There's no like recoil from that. And let's see how Mike Tyson's doing. Oh my God, he's yawning. Cut away from him. Cody is able to fight his way back into the match after being taunted on the outside by Archer. Like he's got his hand like over Cody's face at this point. But Cody fights back. A few minutes after, we see Tyson on camera yawning. He is now cheering very vociferously for Cody here. And then we see a DDT on Archer right in front of Jake. We see a spinebuster by Lance right in front of Arn. Ooh, very symbolic. We even get a stinger splash by Cody. Sting to AEW confirmed, but Lance is able to power out of that, hits a choke slam onto Cody. And then this where things start to get a little weird, because then Archer goes for his rope walk that he did. He did one earlier in the match with the moonsault and everything, very cool. He does it again, and then for some reason, Jake Roberts just gets on the apron to talk with the referee, have a chat, share a cookie recipe, and then while the referee is distracted, Arn just comes out and clips Archer's leg, so Archer gets taken down. And then another referee comes out and says, "I saw what happened," and then Mike Tyson, who was just cheering for Cody Rhodes a minute ago, like stooging on Arn. Like, what? I thought you were on Team Cody. I thought you were part of the Nightmare family, Tyson. Anyway, then both the managers, Arn and Jake, are ejected. And that is their contribution to this matchup here, which is really confusing distraction by Jake, leading to the Arn interference. They both get taken out. So about a minute later, after the managers are ejected, Jake comes back out with a big burlap sack. Ooh, the snake's in there. But then up comes Mike Tyson, cuts him off on stage, doesn't do anything, just like stares him down. They're like yards away. And Jake reconsiders and turns away. Oh, Tyson takes his shirt off and flexes. Yes, Tyson's still in great shape in his 50s. He still got it and everything. And so then after that happens, Cody is just able to hit 2 crossroads on Archer and win. So Cody is your inaugural TNT champion, which is a nice win for him because like I said in my predictions video, he suffered so many high profile losses in the last couple of big shows that I think it was due for a big win. And even though the TNT championship is like a last minute kind of like place good, it's a placeholder, it's a make good basically for, you know, the pandemic. Let's put a gimmick in here to get fans into tuning into the show and everything. So the championship is not really born with the best of intentions, or was not really intended to even exist. But in this way, it helps a nice little redemption for Cody. Yeah, he's not the world champion. He can't challenge that belt, but he does get this other kind of championship. Kind of like, I guess you could say it's like a silver medal. Literally, it's a silver medal. It's a silver belt, for God's sake. But the story there was good. But yeah, I'm going to give this one 3 stars out of 5. The ending sequence is what really threw it off. This, I mean, for a Cody match, it felt very tame. I mean, you're used to seeing all this shit get thrown in there and all these wild things happening. We didn't really see a lot of that, which I guess is fine. It was just more of like a pure, you know, battle of wills and strength, which is fine. But then, yeah, the whole manager thing at the end. And look, I knew that neither guy was going to be taking any kind of bumps. I didn't expect Jake to hit a DDT on anyone, or Arn to hit anyone with a spine buster. But I mean, after the promo they gave on the Go Home show, like their promo was far better than their involvement in this particular match. I don't know what I was expecting since they wouldn't get physical, but I thought it would be better or make more sense or wouldn't feel as just like, oh, we're going to do our spot now, than what we saw in the match. So this past Wednesday on Dynamite during the women's tag team match, Britt Baker was unfortunately injured when Nyla Rose was dumped onto her leg. So it resulted in some torn ligaments there. And you hate to see it because I think Britt was really coming into her own as the heel and the role model character. And that's an injury that's going to put her out for months, which really sucks because she was just finally getting that steam and everything. I was really excited for that character. So yeah, she's out. We get a medical update from the doctor here. Alex Marvez is interviewing the doctor. Whoever shot this thing, I don't know what they were going for, because it was literally like every time Marvez tossed the mic to the doctor, the camera goes vroom, like this, almost like Okada Rainmaker snap zoom, or give the people what they want, onto the doctor and then right back out for the 2 shot. That was really disorienting. But the doctor was funny in this one because he said, you know, Britt, you know, she's so high maintenance and the patient is worse than the injury. He does say that the Britt will have an update on her condition this Wednesday on Dynamite. So Penelope Ford is now Britt's replacement against Kris Statlander, and I love that Kip Sabian comes out with her, and he's very heavily bandaged. He still has like his gimmick on, it's like his ring jacket, but he's got crutches. It's like covered with surgical tape now. This match was, I don't know, it was hard for me to get into. I felt that like these 2 ladies were operating on different wavelengths where they weren't botching things, but there was a different speeds and different levels of intensity. I felt that Kris was much better with like quick attacks and quick movements, and Penelope was just kind of like almost in a slower speed, I felt. Wasn't laying into stuff a lot. that I noticed. I liked her drape over DDT onto Kris, and also at one point she hits a reverse DDT in the middle of the ring. She hits a stunner and a Rana as well. She goes for a springboard, but Kris catches her and hits her with the, she almost damn near spikes her with the Big Bang Theory. It looks absolutely devastating, but she apparently still alive. And so Kris wins, and then she beats her chest and yells into the camera. And like that's like two Sting references in this match with the Scorpion Death Drop and then the beating of the chest that Sting used to do. And we get Sting name dropped in the Cody match with the Stinger Splash. So like, wait a minute, is Sting coming to AEW then? Like they made so many references to him. That's a lot of speculation that I just don't want to get into it right now. But I'm going to give this one 2 stars out of 5. Like I said, I wasn't really feeling this matchup. I think just because of like how Ford felt a little bit off compared to Statlander, but I think they were able to put something together that was okay. I enjoyed the finish, and also I enjoyed Kip Sabian. He was very entertaining at ringside. He was, swinging his crutch around, trying to, get involved in everything, calling Kris a freak and whatnot. So that was entertaining at least. So yeah, there you go. So we're supposed to get Shawn Spears versus Dustin Rhodes up next, but all night they've been saying that Rhodes is nowhere to be found. Where could he be? Shawn Spears makes his way to the ring dressed in a suit, not dressed to wrestle. He wonders where Rhodes is. We hear Dustin's music play, we get the entrance and everything, but then Shawn's like, psych, you all fell for it, oldest trick in the book. And so then he wants to win by forfeit. Then Dustin's music plays again, and Shawn's like, no, you're only supposed to play it once, guys, come on, that's not what we talked about. Brandy Rhodes makes her way down the ramp and distracts Shawn, which allows Dustin to sneak his way into the shot in the ring. So he sneaks up, he jumps Shawn, and the match begins. He starts stripping the suit off of Spears, gets him down to his skivvies. There's a phrase called showing ass. It's what heels do. They make themselves look a little silly to get the face over. Shawn literally shows his ass here because Dustin pulls his boxer briefs down and spanks him. Shawn runs away, and then it's revealed, for whatever reason, Shawn has got a picture of Tully Blanchard's face right in the crotch of his shorts. Why? Who knows? And then what makes it even more unsettling is when they go to wide shots of Shawn, it looks like his dick is falling out, or like a ball is just hanging out of his trunks. Like, oh my God, this is getting horribly indecent. So anyway, Dustin's able to hit him with the final reckoning to win the match. And so there you have it. Dustin is not retired. He is a nice rebuttal to what Shawn Spears had been doing in the weeks leading up to this, especially the SSN promo on Wednesday. I'm going to give it a 0.5 star out of 5. It's not much of a match. But as far as an overall segment goes, I think it was still, like I said, a great rebuttal by Dustin to Shawn. It was funny. Don't know why Tully Blanchard was on Tully's crotch, but that's something we'll have to find out on Wednesday, I think. No DQ match for the Women's Championship as the #1 contender Hikaru Shida challenges Nyla Rose. Early on, they fight over Shida's kendo stick, which Nyla brought to the ring. Nyla does strike first, but Shida's able to kind of come back for a little bit, but it's a very short-lived comeback. At one point, Nyla throws Shida over the barricade and through a blackjack table, and then Nyla goes, always bet on black. That is a roulette reference. Nyla clotheslines Shida out of the ring, and they're fighting on the outside. Hikaru is able to rebound off some steps with a dive and a big flying knee to the back of Nyla's head. They're fighting on the outside. They're startling the librarians. For some reason, Peter Avalon's wearing his robe the entire time. He's the only guy, the only extra on the outside. Like he's wearing his entrance gear, it appears. And so then they're fighting on the chips. There's like a big hip toss onto the chips, and they're flying knee onto another giant poker chip. And then Hikaru gets the kendo stick back and is wailing away on Nyla. They don't look or sound that great at first, but Nyla is able to come back with a power slam. We get a double down. Nyla's big ass flying knee drop over Hikaru, her back when she's draped over the top rope. Always looks devastating. Nyla sets up a table in the corner, and after some fighting, she powerbombs Shida through that. We get a 2 count. Hikaru is able to come back and do a bit of a kendo stick beating. Nyla goes up top, and Hikaru throws the stick at her. Hits a top rope Falcon Arrow. We get a kick out. Another knee strike. Another kick out. Finally, Shida, with one more swing of the kendo stick, hits Nyla right in the side of the head and breaks the kendo stick. Another knee strike. Hikaru pins and wins to become the new women's champion. I'm going to give this one 4 stars out of 5. This match like way exceeded my expectations in this one, because I know Hikaru is great, and with the right opponents, Nyla can be great too. But this was again far exceeded what I expected this match to be, and I just love the physicality. I love the story of Hikaru kind of overcoming those odds of just being pulverized by Nyla early on. She comes back and does all these big moves, and Nyla looking tough as well, could have a lot of Hikaru's biggest moves. I was kind of surprised that Nyla lost the championship as soon as she did. I mean, she hasn't been on TV that much in the course of the pandemic, but when she has been on TV, she's looked very good, very dominant. Did not expect her. I thought they were going to keep this momentum going with her. I was kind of thinking Shida would eventually win the championship, just not on this night, but I was proven wrong. Maybe it was some kind of, I mean, I wonder if it was kind of, well, we need more feel-good moments on this show, especially after the terrible week wrestling fans have had with the passings of Shad Gaspard and more recently Hana Kimura. But be that as it may, I still like the match a lot. I was pleased with the end result. I think Hikaru could be a great women's champion, depends on how they book her. In your first of 2 main events on the evening, Jon Moxley defends the AEW World Championship against Mr. Brodie Lee of the Dark Order. The match begins fast and furious, lots of fighting, a dive by Moxley, a suplex on the floor by Lee, who then has a dive of his own. More fighting on the outside, Lee terrorizing the Librarians again, a pump handle slam into this barricade. They're fighting all over the place, and the referee does let a lot of this go. This is not an ODQ match by rule, but the referee is letting a lot of shit slide here. They're fighting on the outside for a lot of this matchup here. At one point, Moxley sits on some steel steps, but he takes too long, and then Lee ends up getting backdropped off the steps through a table, but man, you could see that Brodie almost clipped his head, the back of his head on the edge of the steps, which didn't look good. And there would be some a little later in this matchup where it would look even more scary. There's these like styrofoam or wooden playing cards that are part of the set, and like the ace is like a kind of a flipped image of like Moxley on one side, Lee on the other, and Moxley gets thrown into that, and they're just like beating each other with him. I thought it would have been hilarious if at one point, kind of like what we saw in Money in the Bank when they took the portrait and like they bashed Dana Brooke in the head with it, and her head was like through Carmella's face. I want to see the same kind of spot here with like Moxley doing it to Lee and having his face come through the Brodie Lee image on the card, but that did not happen. We get a big boot by Lee and a power bomb, but Moxley is able to kick out. He rolls his way out of the ring and up the stage, like throwing a chip at Lee as the fighting goes on. Moxley hits a paradigm shift off the steps and through the ramp, through like the pathway. So a big old hole was made, and this is the scary part because I had no idea the way Moxley was falling back. You couldn't really tell like where his head ended and like the wood that was like on the outside of the hole began. Like, oh my god, I hope he didn't like just bang his head against the edge of that wood. That looked really horrifying. But they're both able to climb out of the wreckage. The match does not stop. They're able to climb out. Lee is bleeding from this. So they get in the ring. Another paradigm shift. Lee kicks out at 1, if that. Another paradigm shift. Lee kicks out at 2. This time Moxley gets him in a rear naked choke, and you can see like how beat red / purple Lee's face gets at this point, and he wraps around his body around Lee. He's not going anywhere. The arm goes limp, and the referee calls it, and Moxley wins and retains the championship. I'm going to also give this match 4 stars out of 5. What a wild match it was. It felt like a fight. It was a massive brawl. It was exhausting in all the best ways. The stage spot was a lovely touch, and considering it's the last match taking place in Daly's place proper on the night, why not have a big explosive spot like that where like part of the set actually gets destroyed? That really upped the ante for me in this thing. And just I think that I knew they were gonna have a good match, but I was not sold on the build. But I mean, the match itself was terrific, and Moxley looked like a badass out there, and Lee also looked very strong. I don't know where he's going to end up after this and like what his next feud will be, but I think that it was a great coming out party for him. It was his most competitive match to date since coming to AEW. But yeah, I love this match. And now the moment you're probably all waiting for, the Stadium Stampede, the Elite versus the Inner Circle. I am so upset that I don't have the footage ready to show you for this, because it is just truly a work of art. This thing was taped separately the night before, apparently, and it sounds like they played it on the big screen, and then you had all the audience that was there at Daly's place reacting to it, which really added to it for me. So anyway, big football field. You get the idea what the NFL stadiums look like. There's a ring in the middle, and then you've got each team making their big entrance with all the smoke and everything. The inner circle come out wearing custom football jerseys, and they all have numbers on their jerseys that are significant to their lives and everything. I don't think they mentioned what the references were for 50 and 51 for Santana and Ortiz, but the other three did get mentions. And so anyway, unfortunately, the Elite are not in the same spirit. They're not wearing matching jerseys. I'm very disappointed in them. Also, I thought it was funny that Sammy Guevara and Ortiz both had football helmets on at their beginning as well. All but Hangman Page show up for Team Elite, but they have to go on without him. The match begins when both teams run from the opposite ends of the field. They just run toward the 50-yard line and start wailing on each other. Hangman Page does show up on a horse. Of course he does. It's cowboy shit. He chases Guevara out of the stadium. I was really hoping Guevara would take a bump off the horse. We then finally get like maybe our only 2 minutes of actual in-ring time in this matchup, because it starts up with Jericho and Nick Jackson, then Matt comes in, and everyone kind of spills in eventually, except for Hangman and Guevara. And so then they're all getting their shit in. Sammy does come back after he outruns the horse, and there's a great Sammy chant by the cheerleaders too. The Jacksonville Jaguar cheerleaders are in attendance, and they're definitely pro Inner Circle. More wild brawl all over the place. At one point, Sammy hits a shooting star press from the top rope to the outside, but I think he hits more of his teammates than his actual opponents. His own guys do a better job of catching Guevara, but I mean, it's still a better job than everyone else did in trying to catch Rey Fenix on Wednesday, which is why he wasn't in the ladder match on this night. And because they're in a football stadium, you know someone's doing a dive off the goalpost. That job went to Matt Jackson, who climbed a ladder to get there. Big diving moonsault onto his opponents. That was really cool to see. We then see Hangman Page still trying to find Guevara on his horse, but he stops. He goes to the arena bar. We'll see more of him later on. Proud and Powerful, Santana and Ortiz are brawling with Omega and Matt Hardy in this kind of like upper deck fan bar area. They powerbomb Omega through this like barricade bridge, and Santana and Ortiz are on like cocktail tables. They're not any kind of structure. It's like they bridge the barricade on these 4 bar tables, these tall ones you have to stand next to, and you see the referees are bracing the table for Santana and Ortiz as they're doing it, and one of them just slips and falls anyway after the fact, or almost falls. That was really precarious, but Omega's out. They start fighting with Hardy, and there's like this upper deck pool area that fans can sit in during games. So they fight in the pool, and the best part's Ortiz. He's not a good swimmer, so he like gently climbs down the ladder into this like 3 or 4 feet of water. It's like he's not even any risk. So they're fighting in the water. They're like drowning Matt in the water, but every time they put him under, then he comes back as a different version of Matt Hardy. He comes back as like the OG Hardy Boy, and then he's beaten down some more. As they're drowning him, the Matt facts show up, and Ortiz and Santana acknowledge the graphic. They can look off camera and see the graphics. V1 shows back up and says they don't have the matitude, the right attributes to beat V1, and they drown him again. He comes back again as Broken Matt Hardy, and that was just phenomenal. It was so great to see. So there's also this giant bell they ring when the Jags score a touchdown, and so you've got Ortiz being deafened by the bell that after Matt rings it. He's just like convulsing, and so then there's a wheelchair with duct tape on it. Matt puts him in the wheelchair, tapes him up, and then just like lets him go. Then he puts Ortiz into a ice chest similar to what he was in the street fight a few weeks ago and locks it shut with a broom handle. That's the last time we see Proud and Powerful in this match, but that chapter was just, it was such great fan service, just seeing like all the Matt iterations come through here, and it was so damn funny. We then go back to the field and see Jericho and Guevara fighting the Young Bucks. And I will say, if Matt Hardy and all those transformations was not my highlight of the match, my other highlight was Matt doing the Infinite Northern Lights to Sammy from one end of the field to the other through the use of creative editing. Because as soon as he starts doing the Infinite Northern Lights, I'm like, oh, they're going to do a bit where he gets cutting back and he's just going down the field. And they did! And it was fucking phenomenal. I was laughing my ass off every time they cut back to him. Meanwhile, like Nick Jackson is fighting Jericho. 100% completion rating on the night for Nick as well. He has footballs, he's throwing them at Jericho. Then after that, Jericho hits the Judas effect on the Jaguars mascot, Jackson DeVille, and then Jericho goes to pin Matt. There's a 2 count, and Jericho argues with the referee, Aubrey Edwards. He throws the red challenge flag. If you don't follow American football, then some of these references might be lost on you. But Jericho throws the red flag, and they both go into the replay booth together to show the replay. You hear them arguing the entire time, and the call stands, 2 count. Jericho goes, "You're a shitty referee!" Nick runs down the stadium steps to do a splash off the bleachers or off the railing on that first tier seat onto Jericho through a table. And after he's out, you see a drunk Hangman Page with the line marker just kind of stumbling through the field. He just runs over Jericho with it, which is a great fitting end of Jericho in this thing. Finally, Sammy Guevara, who's been selling those Northern Lights, he is woken up by the sprinkler system. He is the last member of the Inner Circle standing. He is pursued by the members of the Inner Circle, especially with Omega and Hardy, or the Elite, I should say. Omega and Hardy with the golf cart. Sammy is able to escape that, though. He's finally in a confrontation with Matt Hardy on this ledge here. He's choking him out. Then suddenly you hear the drone sound. It's Neo One. It is the new Hardy drone, who then distracts Sammy, and that allows Omega to capitalize. Hits a one-winged angel on Sammy from this top platform thing on the seats, several feet down onto this big giant wooden box with a crash pad underneath. But it still was really impressive, the depth and the height they came down from and everything. And Omega pins Guevara, and that's it, and the Elite win. Holy shit. I'm sorry that there's no video for this. It's one of those things you had to be there to really see it. But as far as my rating for this, okay, look, 5 stars is not enough for this match. This one, for the first time ever, is going to get 6 stars. You heard me. This was, you can have your Firefly Funhouse match, your Boneyard match, Money in the Bank. Those are all great. But I think this surpassed them all. There was so much fun to be had in this thing. It wasn't a wrestling match. Okay, if you want a wrestling match, go watch MJF and Jungle Boy. This was just a wild brawl with all this great moments in there. There's fun. There's gag after gag after gag. These guys just didn't miss a beat. They didn't take themselves too seriously in this one. There was still a lot of good action and good wrestling and brawling in there, but there was also some funny stuff. And I had not laughed this much or enjoyed myself watching a wrestling match, since Money in the Bank, that ladder match. But this was even better than that. I thought it was great. It didn't need a score. This is how you do a crazy ass on location brawl. This is how you think outside the box in a pandemic. And after watching this match, it will be hard for me to be more entertained by anything else this year than what we saw with the Stadium Stampede. I stand by that. One of my favorite matches of the year is this one right here. My grade for AEW Double or Nothing 2020 is an A-. I will admit, not every match in this show is perfect. There were a couple that were not barn burners. I don't count the buy-in, by the way. That tag team match is not part of the grade because it's not part of the official show. So not every match was a barn burner. There were some matches I couldn't get into, or I felt like I was kind of burned out from previous matches, but the ones that were great were great. Like I said, MJF and Jungle Boy was fantastic. The championship matches, Rhodes and Shida and Moxley and Lee, were great in their own way, both very physical. The ladder match, even though there were a couple points where it kind of sucks that they were kind of taking their time, getting ready for spots and everything, the stuff that we saw was still very entertaining and a great way to just immediately legitimize Brian Cage on the roster and just right away give him the rocket and make him the #1 contender was great. And of course, the splendor that was the Stadium Stampede, a match that from the very opening shot to the very end, I had a smile on my face and I was laughing my ass off and I just could not look away. But those are just my thoughts, folks. Let me know what you thought about Double or Nothing in the comment section below, especially that wild Stadium Stampede match, and give it a letter grade by going to the iCard to the corner of your screen. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.